New York City is about to elect a Democratic socialist as mayor. What could go wrong? How worried should we be? Welcome to the Reason Roundtable. I'm your host, Peter Suderman. This is your libertarian review of news and culture from the editors at Reason Magazine. Today, I am joined by my colleagues Matt Welch, Katherine Mangu-Ward, and Nick Gillespie. Happy Monday. Happy election week. All right, New York City, capital of global finance, about to elect social media socialist for mayor Zohran Mamdani. He wants to freeze the rent. He wants to start government-run grocery stores. He wants to make buses free and provide free childcare for every New York child starting at 6 weeks old. Like I said, what could go wrong? So let's all just give our worst-case scenarios, but also our best. Nick, you have written about Zohran Mamdani and his what to expect from his likely tenure as mayor here. Let's start with you.
I think the best case scenario is that he wins with a plurality of the vote and is mostly blocked from doing what he's doing by the idiots in Albany, who are also terrible. The best case scenario.
This is like a Mr. Burns situation where all of the diseases cancel each other out.
Yeah. And I guess that was the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that he gets elected in a giant landslide and does everything he campaigned upon, including globalizing the Intifada, which I'm not sure what that would mean, but I doubt it would be good for New York City.
I thought he was against globalization.
Not this one. His dad's the Columbia economist, has a book coming out about Idi Amin, not such a bad guy. So look for that.
I wish that was the title. That'd be
I'd read the book then. Yeah. Matt Welch, you got a best case and a worst case for us?
Yeah, best case, there really aren't any, but if I had to choose one or concoct one, it would be that if somehow he was able to do one of the idiot things that he's campaigning on, that was clear, like he wants to tax billionaires. So if he was somehow able to do that, even though he can't unilaterally do that, or if he's really able to convince Albany to make the bus fares free, then those things would happen and be a disaster and would be a clear-cut disaster that therefore people can look at and say, oh, that's a bad idea, and not replicate them. I think the much more likely
So,
things,
for example, just like rent control has worked and it's been such a clear-cut disaster and everybody could look at that and see it's not working, right?
No, it would have to be more clean than that because New York has one of the most highly regulated rental markets and real estate markets in the United States, certainly. And so
I think we can safely say the galaxy, Matt.
The galaxy feels like it. So it's not clean, but okay, we're going to make buses free, and the bus turns into a rolling homeless shelter where people are stabbing each other as if they're in London, then it would be a lot cleaner to see the cause and effect than it would whatever he does to the rental market, which will also be terrible. A worst scenario. So that's a good scenario.
The murder bus is your good scenario? That's your upside?
The good scenario,
the homeless murder bus,
is if he's able to do a bad thing that is enough so that people understand that it's bad. You see what I'm saying? The bad scenario is, I think, the more likely one, which is that he wins. A whole bunch of people, especially people not in New York, get excited about it, think that's how we need to campaign as Democrats. And therefore, all of his dumb ideas, which he was able to win an election using, will therefore be copied throughout the country in places that are not nearly as big as New York City.
Katherine, there was a piece in Axios that warned that Mamdani might be the front for a new wave of anti-AI democratic socialism. Is that your worst case scenario?
I guess my best case scenario is that Sliwa and Cuomo lose, and my worst case scenario is that Mamdani wins. So that's where we are at this point. The AI thing is almost certainly a red herring in New York. I mean, sure, as goes New York, so goes the Democratic Party.
In a Tim Curry voice.
Whatever.
Tim Curry from Clue.
I'm not going to do the Tim Curry voice. I can't do the Tim. I wish I could communicate exclusively in the voice of Tim Curry in Clue, but alas, I was not so blessed. I think AI is going to make our politics really weird, but I don't think this race tells us about what's happening there.
Yeah, socialism was just a red herring.
Stop. please. You can't do it either.
I'm going to do the rest of this podcast in
Batman?
Tim Curry voice. If you haven't seen Clue, it's a great movie. One of the early it's basically a video game. One of the early choose your own adventure films. Like Matt, I think my worry is that this is not just going to be a disaster for New York, but for the country, because Democrats are going to want to copy it. And they're going to rally around this guy because right now Democrats want someone to rally around. And they specifically want a hero who they can rally around in the era of Donald Trump to be the guy in the cape who comes in and saves them from Donald Trump.
No capes.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was the rule in The Incredibles. And it should be the rule for Democrats, but they are going to want to put a cape on Mamdani and make him their hero. And I think that is my worry here, is that his ideas spread and that he becomes the avatar, the model, the person that Democrats view as this is our path to winning. This is what we need to do in order to excite young people, in order to sort of bring the country back to our side in the age of Donald Trump, because they're just desperate for a person they can turn to be that David against the Goliath they see as Donald Trump. But I do think there is maybe, and this is a real long shot, I want to be clear, there is maybe an upside that isn't actually so bad. It's not good. It's not like I'm excited about it, but it's not so bad. And that upside is maybe New York just turns out like Boston, because Michelle Wu is a Democratic socialist adjacent person. I don't think she uses that term for herself, but she is an Elizabeth Warrenite, right? She is on the left technocratic regulate everything wing of the party. And she is also a pretty decent, in many ways, certainly very popular, big city mayor. And that doesn't mean that I support absolutely everything she's doing. That doesn't mean she's not doing a whole bunch of terrible stuff on the regulatory front, on the tax front, on the treatment of business front. She is not good by libertarian standards. But Boston is a functional city. It is a functional city because it has a basically competent mayor who has decided that making the city livable and functional and workable for the people who actually live there, that is a priority. And then she also, does a whole bunch of sort of payoffs to her groups and keeps the sort of her local constituents happy, right? But first and foremost, she is trying to keep the city clean and functional and operating. And she's also doesn't appear to just be sort of like a weirdo madman who is maybe also, or madwoman, I guess I should say, who is maybe also looking to like use this primarily as a stepladder to some bigger office. And so I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think this is, I don't even think it's all that good a scenario. I don't think it's like a super high upside, but it is possible that he will look at this job and try to and take it seriously and just do the job of being mayor well, because the most popular big city mayor in America is a Democrat who is somebody who he can maybe take some lessons from. Okay, let's talk just a little bit more about this. Is not the only election that is happening right now. There are also other elections coming up this week in New Jersey, in Virginia. There's a governor's election in New Jersey. Nick Gillespie, you want to tell us a little bit about that? I hear you know a few things about New Jersey.
Yeah, I know I'm from New Jersey, and it's better to be from New Jersey than in New Jersey. And also the New Jersey's governorship, why anybody would want it is beyond me. Great past holders of this seat included Woodrow Wilson. We all love him, right? George McClellan, the loser of the northern loser of the Civil War, was governor. And some of you may remember Jim McGreevey, who had the most incredible sex scandal in around 2004, where he hired a member of the IDF to become New Jersey's security czar, and then claimed to have a homosexual affair with him, which broke up his marriage, got him kicked out of office. But then the IDF guy said that I'm not gay and we never had sex, but McGreevey sexually harassed me. I mean, this seat in the governor's mansion, which is a dump in Trenton, it's still hot from Jim McGreevey, and that's like 20 years ago. But in any case, the reason this race is interesting is because Mikey Sherrill is a centrist Democrat. She's been a congresswoman from with a military background from New Jersey for a while. Is not good really on anything, as a kind of stay the course mediocre Democrat, which is exactly the person she would be replacing, a mediocre kind of centrist, meaning shitty Democrat. And she's up against a guy named Jack Ciattarelli, whose real name is Giancino Ciattarelli, but he is kind of anti-immigrant, not as much as Trump, but others. The reason why this election matters, I think, for the country is that if Cheryl wins, it really is the kind of opposite vision of a Democratic Party than you're seeing with Mamdani or his counterpart in Seattle, a woman named Katie Wilson, who's also a Democratic Socialist and is much younger. She's, I think, Gen X or millennial, like Mamdani, going up against a boomer type, Andrew Cuomo equivalent. So if Cheryl wins, I think it's a sign that the Democrats nationally will start to take seriously the idea of being more centrist. Maybe they even get back to some of their pro-market roots, that kind of died out with the end of Bill Clinton's era.
There is also a governor's election in Virginia. Katherine Mangu-Ward, you were recently, until very recently, resident of Virginia. You want to tell us about that?
I don't know what's going on, to be quite honest. Virginia, I mean, the race in Virginia is actually
Welcome to politics in 2025.
The race in Virginia is really interesting because it does scramble a bunch of people's priors. We have Winsome Earl-Sears, who is a Black woman who has posed with almost every gun imaginable, I think, in her publicity photos. Nick, you talked to her about school choice.
Yeah, she's
an
great
interesting
on school
character.
choice.
I keep seeing ads in my Twitter feed that are ads from her campaign highlighting the fact that she sometimes says kind of dumb stuff accidentally. But honestly, doesn't that make you like her more? That's what's going on in that campaign. Is they seem to be running on sometimes our candidate says dumb stuff she doesn't really mean, and then Abigail Spanberger is. She codes Republican in a bunch of ways that are
What do you mean by that?
So she's from a small town. She worked in the CIA, which kind of used to be a thing that Republicans in Virginia did, but now it's Democrats. Who knows?
So she investigated Trump. She's
part of the deep state, maybe. I don't know. But she has also... as a member of the House, she voted in a bunch of ways that people at Reason kind of liked. When I searched her name on our site recently, I found her vote trying to push back on the 1991 authorization for the use of military force, saying the fact that it hasn't been misused or hasn't been abused doesn't mean that possibility doesn't exist at some point in the future. Very reasonable, kind of libertarianish thing to say. She doesn't like the word socialism. We like that too.
What does she prefer to call it?
She just said we don't need to use that word ever again, which,
that's pretty good.
There's that. And then there's also the fact that she opposed a kind of a plan that would have expanded the IRS's reach into people's private records. So she's an unusual Democrat in that way. My lifelong experience in Virginia, I grew up there, suggests that actually the only issue that ever existed or ever will exist is the car tax. And so probably people will just vote on that.
She was also, if I may, Spanberger, along with Cheryl, were part of what a bad branding exercise called the Mod Squad.
Oh, no.
Where after Trump was elected, there were a bunch of moderate Democratic women who were kind of pushing back against the AOC squad. So they became the Mod Squad.
That has so much potential, and it is a shame that it went absolutely nowhere. Like they could have been in, mini skirts and trench coats. It could have been a whole
but
thing.
it was not that. But self-consciously, they are moderate Democrats, and maybe if they had called themselves centrist Democrats or market Democrat, we'd be getting somewhere. But
yeah, Matt, what do you see? Sort of, we've got these kind of two tracks for Democrats right now. You've got the Mamdani Socialist track, and that's the one that's getting a lot of attention. First of all, because the people in the press live in New York, and second of all, because a lot of members of the press are just excited by this, right? And he is a more exciting candidate. But you also have these two governors who are going to win, or maybe going to win. Spanberger almost certainly, less clear with Cheryl, but their wins could also be models for Democrats.
I think it's interesting that the Spanberger race has not received a lot of outside national attention. You haven't seen a lot of evidence of pulse quickening on the Democratic side for this, even though that would mean you're replacing a Republican governor in a purplish state, Catherine can correct me, with a Democratic governor. That seems like a big deal. It also is a strange or interesting kind of referendum on the government shutdown. And I'm hoping by invoking that we don't ever have to talk about that again. But because so many people in Northern Virginia work for the federal government and they're all bent out of shape about it, and yet they can vote for Democrats. So who do they blame, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the fact that it's Mamdani that has captured the beating heart of so many people on the left is it's a kind of tell. It's sort of what people want to, as Peter, you were alluding to before, Democrats want to feel like they're affirmatively voting for something instead of just being like Biden, Tim Kaine, Bill de Blasio. They want that feeling.
That guy from Minnesota.
That is an indication, I think, of where too many Democrats want to go, as opposed to seeing where the country is sort of winnable or not winnable. I'll just add to Nick's New Jersey rant that it's great to live in the New Jersey media market, because like you get the Mikey Sherrill, the anti-Mikey Sherrill ads are just her talking in an interview, and they're like, "Can you believe she's so stupid?" Like, if I voted New Jersey, that might swing me, because they're really, really dumb seeming ads. So yeah, we're not going to have a lot of visibility on what the future of the Democratic Party is. I think it's still completely unsolved. And the idea and the fact that you're probably going to get the needle moving more globally at a time. Scratch the needle. Just say this: Donald Trump is super unpopular right now. He's had like the worst polling that he's had. Independents have totally abandoned him. At some point, I swear to God, people are going to realize that he's a lame duck, and it's going to change the politics. We had 5 Republican senators vote, I think, last week to rebuff him on tariffs. My God, 5 whole Republicans. My only hope in all of these individuals who are all terrible is that it hastens the Republican realization that Trump is a lame duck and you don't have to vote with him in the future.
And you would think that the drama around the Heritage Foundation, or as I like to call it now, the Heritage American Foundation,
very good,
kind of simping for Tucker Carlson and anti-Semitism, is a sign the wheels are going off the Republican coalition every bit as much. If the Democrats want to get on an anti-AI bandwagon, they should use Andrew Cuomo's AI-generated Zohran Mamdani ad, which is a riff on the old Schoolhouse Rock, I'm just a Bill thing that keeps getting worse to a point when if you watch this thing, it's 1 minute and 30 seconds in the ad. We'll put it in the show notes. At the end of it, it is like watching The Ring, the Japanese movie where people watch a video and then 72 hours want to kill themselves. It is so bad.
Is it crawling out of your screen?
It starts at terrible and then just shoots out into the atmosphere.
I was watching it and I stopped twice to check if it was real. Like I was like, what's happening?
It's the Too Many Cooks of political ads.
It is so bad.
If you don't know Too Many Cooks, you got to look it up.
And it's the only sign of energy. That's the only non-low energy part of Cuomo's campaign is his AI slop ads.
Oh my God. I'll tell you when the Big Apple literally comes out at the end. It's like,
please,
there's not a dry eye in the house. It's unbelievable.
Can I put in one more election season grouse before those expire, which is that several people at the Reason office were talking about this the other day. The texts that we are getting, and I don't know if this is everywhere that these come, but specifically the ones that say tomorrow is election day or next week is election day or whatever, public records show that and then it inserts your vote, like whether you voted. And then says, remember, who you vote for is private, but whether you vote is public information. And it's like, how dare you? First of all, that is kind of garbage that is public information. I think that totally sucks and I'm against it. But,
although you tell the world that you don't vote.
So for me, getting a text that says, we know you didn't vote in the last cycle is like, thank you. Everyone knows that. But for many people, I think that's a real, that feels probably like an invasion and kind of like a threat. And I just like, this is not a good get out the vote technique. I don't like it, and we should not have this be public information.
I mean,
frankly.
It's also outdated given that was developed during the time when Democrats thought that getting out the vote, that a larger turnout was going to help them. And in the Trump era, increasingly, that seems to be not true.
Yet another amazing example of we are in charge and we will do a thing that benefits us in the next election, and future be damned.
All right. Since Matt Welch invoked the specter of the government shutdown, let's talk about the government shutdown. We are on the verge of the longest government shutdown ever. I think it's going to be Wednesday or Thursday. If we reach Wednesday or Thursday and the government's still shut down, then it will be the longest one on record. And so over the weekend, just a couple of days before we taped this, we crossed the 1 month mark. And that meant that funding for food stamps, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program known as SNAP, was set to run out. Well, it was set to run out, except a judge ruled, actually, you gotta pay the benefits using this pot of emergency money. And the Trump administration has said, well, that's not quite enough money to pay for all of it, because it's like $8 or $9 billion a month. A month, folks, that is a lot of money every single month. And so now we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it looks like some partial payment is going to be made here. Katherine, is there any lesson to be drawn about big benefit programs like food stamps from this kerfuffle?
It's all too big to fail. It's too big to fail all the way down. It's also too big to fail. It's too big to fail. And this will always be true. We have every single thing can be an emergency once the dollar figures get large enough. And actually, the New Jersey governor's race, one of the things that's happening in that race, I think, is that Cheryl has promised to do a day one emergency because utility bills are too high or something in New Jersey. Everything is an emergency. And so while it is true that, due to, frankly, a bunch of bad policymaking leading up to this, a huge number of Americans are reliant on SNAP and have it budgeted into their household monthly budget. And this would be a terrible shock to their household systems. It also can't be self-justifying. We can't have it be true that two wrongs always make a right. It cannot always be true that once the government is spending enough money and putting its fingers into every single part of the economy, that then a cessation of that money or that interference causes a crisis. This is the case for small government. It's always been the case for small government. And the reason this shutdown is lasting so long is because they're just piece by piece making sure that no one feels an acute amount of pain.
I am very glad that you ended the phrase putting its fingers into every single part of with the word the economy.
Yeah, well, we can talk about, Cuomo
Speaking
or Trump
of
or whatever you
feeling
want
pain,
later. Yeah.
So Matt, one of the weird quirks that has come up in the last week or so is that, part of the government shutdown is the troops were not being or don't get paid, except that Trump is at least thinking about paying them with $130 million private donation from some rich guy who has also funded a bunch of other Trump stuff. It's not clear that this is legal. People are like, is this corrupt? It's also only like $100 per serviceman, even though it's $130 million. These are very large amounts of money. Is this corrupt? Is it legal? Does it tell us anything that this is where we're at?
Man, I don't know.
Thank you for your wisdom.
Theme of this podcast,
or Qatar or Saudi Arabia. They are, and by that I mean Suderman, but the world is really trying to get me to care about a government shutdown. And I feel a lot of resentment about that. Let's make it about me for a second instead of poor people who are going to starve. No, I mean, everyone is looking for a way to try to find the person who will feel the pain, that will put the pressure on the major political party to make this shutdown stop. The reason why Trump said, let's stop the SNAP benefits, was because that would put pressure on Democratic policymakers like, oh my God, your shutdown is hurting the poor people you claim to represent. And it would have done that, and they would have solved the shutdown immediately. And as soon as the military service people actually feel that pain in an acute way going forward, like you could see, it's hilarious to watch Republicans and Democrats totally switch sides on this. Like the New York Post, Fox News, everyone's like, our brave flight controllers. They're really feeling it. It's they're basically first responders. They go to work every day, and I just can't believe what the Democrats are doing to them.
Based on the flight delays that I am hearing about, it is pretty clear that they are not going to work every day.
The flight delays and the Thanksgiving holiday is where this will then that shall not pass. Gandalf will jump on the stone bridge until the Balrog to go take a hike. I can't really be bothered with it if that's not clear enough. It's probably illegal. It's probably corrupt. It's Trump. It's a day ending in Y. Of course it's corrupt, and he's going to find a way to do it, but to pay for something that he's not legally authorized to do. Hopefully later on, since I'm the foreshadower here, that we'll talk about the Supreme Court telling Trump what he can and can't do, but it's hard to get exercised about this particular thing because there's the 25 other ones looming directly over his shoulder.
Okay, so Nick, on past podcasts, you and I have gone back and forth about who exactly is to blame here. But I sort of just want, but both of us actually agree, and this is weird to me. It continues to
Matt should care more about the government shutdown.
Then Matt should care more.
He's just dead
because it's his job.
You know?
No, but the thing that both of us, that I think all of us agree about on this podcast, is that this shutdown isn't doing any good. That we need to get past the shutdown. I think that everybody has said this is not going to lead us to smaller government. This is not going to lead us to significant fiscal reforms. This is not even going to really save money on a day-to-day basis for the 30, 35, whatever, 40 days this is going to run. There is just no policy good. If you care about good governance from a libertarian perspective, there is no good that is coming from this, which is a weird thing for a bunch of libertarians to be like, boo this shutdown. It's not good. But what I want to know from you is, since we all agree on that, since we want the government to reopen here, and since you think that it is Republicans' fault and not Democrats, we went back and forth on this a couple episodes ago, what should be done? If it's Republicans' fault, what do they specifically need to do?
Well, I want to talk about my friend Rocco from high school and college. Who
last name, please?
I don't want to say that because that might trigger legal action.
Is this one of those New Jersey sex stories again?
Orders are on me, gag orders. But he, at some point, he had a problem with weight when I knew him, and he got to around 275, weighing 275. And most people are like, I got to cut back, and he was like, fuck it, I'm going to 300, and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do. Because when when you're near the record, you don't say okay, let's ease off. Let's fucking go. So first and foremost, I hope that they break the old record.
Yeah.
And the general ease with which this government shutdown has been, has visited upon people. It's actually maybe, and I know this won't be the case, but maybe the fact that it's gone on this long without causing, the birds to fall from the skies might start a different type of conversation about the role of government and the size, scope, and spending thereof. More specifically to your point, Peter, I think what the Republicans should be doing, if they want to end it and end it on terms that are kind of favorable to them so that they don't get blamed for SNAP or they don't get blamed for the troops, walking away and the air traffic controllers, which this is a system that should have been privatized or corporatized more accurately the minute that Trump took over. Because he was talking about this stuff. And, we're still living under Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg has laced the boot of air traffic controllers who don't come to work every day or something like that. In any case, I think what the Republicans should do is come up with a mix of a continuing resolution and a clear, 2 or 3 other policies that, where they said, we're not going to give you the Obamacare subsidies the way you want, but we're doing this, or we're setting a point where we are going to have a vote to repeal and replace Obamacare the way that we talked about, and have the Democrats sign off on that to expedite that. We're going to, allow SNAP benefits to go forward until this point, and we have a vote on how we reform the program and actually make a gesture towards governing, rather than just kind of playing chicken with everybody until it's Christmas time or something like that. But I would love to see what, you asked what the Republicans can do is they could also revolt against their fucking leader, because Mitch McConnell, who God help us, is still alive, or whoever's working for him is still alive and is putting out statements that are contrary to Trump. It's like, Congress could also do something without Trump.
So speaking of Republicans who are revolting against Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene this weekend went on Bill Maher, Real Time, with Michael Moynihan, former Reason staffer, and basically said Republicans have consistently blown it on Obamacare reform, on trying to figure out what to do about health care. She keeps asking Mike Johnson for a plan. He doesn't have one, and Republicans have absolutely no idea. This is not new. This is something that I have been writing about for basically as long as I have been at Reason. Obamacare is a disaster and a bad plan, but Republicans do not have a response to explain what it is that they are going to do. Katherine, can you explain why is that the case? And why does it take Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, to say that in clear language?
Nothing is more surprising to me than being clunked on the back of the head by the Marjorie Taylor Greene horseshoe in this moment. I guess it was the back of my head, so I didn't see it coming definitionally. But it's not actually hard to make the observation Obamacare is a disaster and we should probably do something about it, right? It is within even the capabilities of Marjorie Taylor Greene. But as you have written many times, Suderman, it's really, really hard to describe a thing that would work and move us in the right direction. A real free market in healthcare has never been tried. And while, of course, there are just some you could just undo some of the more recent, clearly failed experiments, but that probably doesn't get you to a place where Americans who are, using Obamacare exchanges to find their health insurance say oh, wow, this is definitely better and I'm going to vote Republican next time. Republicans are cowards and they don't exactly know how to fix it, and they recognize fixing it comes with political risk. And so they're just not gonna ever, I think.
I mean, it would require them to say something more than Obamacare is bad is the problem. They need to say the next thing, which is also the rest of the healthcare policy superstructure is problematic, and we need to unwind all of it. Obamacare, Medicaid, Medicare, the whole system is just a mess from the get-go, and we need to the employer, the tax carve-out for employer healthcare that goes back to World War II because we had price controls back then. The whole thing just needs to be unwound, and then we need to go to a system where we provide care for the poor and the needy primarily, and where we maybe have some sort of catastrophic plan for the middle class, right? And but that's a really hard thing to say, and I'll say it, but I'm not running for office. It would be incredibly politically unpopular if you said it while you were running for office. I will never be elected governor of New Jersey or anywhere else because I have now said this on the record. Nick, go ahead, and then we're going to move on.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, John McCain ran on repealing the tax break for healthcare, insurance premiums paid by the employer.
What a maverick.
He was a maverick in that case, and unfortunately, that got overwhelmed by Obama's, push for what became known as Obamacare. But I think that would be a good place to start staging that conversation at the very least.
And Obama took that off the table as the opening bit of Obamacare. It's okay, we're going to fix the system. We can't touch the thing that everyone agrees is the root problem of the system.
Well, they kind of sort of tried to do it a little bit with a thing called the Cadillac tax, which then got delayed and delayed and delayed and basically didn't.
To a point where now people are like, what is a Cadillac? I mean, I love that. The idea that there was a time.
The Soto tax.
Yeah, I mean, it's just wow, that's you mean, so it's a tax on really shitty, overpriced stuff. And it's oh, yeah, I guess so.
It's a tax on things old people like, which actually is true.
Yeah, they're going to have to call it the Porsche tax. Yeah, all right, let's take a break. And after we come back, we are going to answer a listener question about working for the man, by which I mean the government. This show is sponsored by Donors Trust. Earlier this year, Donald Trump signed a new tax bill into law, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. The law largely keeps Trump's 2017 tax cuts in place, but there are important changes to the tax code coming in 2026. That's next year. And that means your charitable giving before December 31st really matters. If you support local charities or libertarian nonprofits like the Reason Foundation, the Cato Institute, or others, then now is the time to think strategically. With the right planning, you might be able to reduce your taxes, simplify your giving, maybe even give more than you thought was possible. That's why our friends at Donors Trust created a Libertarian's Guide to 2025 year-end giving. It's clear, it's practical, and it'll help you take the headache out of your year-end giving and make the most of your philanthropy before the new rules kick in. Visit donorstrust.org/reason to learn more and download their year-end giving guide. That's donorstrust.org/reason. All right, as a reminder, we love to answer your questions. If you have a question you want us to consider, please send your short, succinct, pithy, and otherwise not very long question to podcasts@reason.com. This week's listener question comes from Matt. Not this one, a different Matt, who writes, I work at a small defense contracting company. Recently, I was in Washington, D.C. for a conference, and a chance encounter with a Reason Roundtable host got me thinking. What does Reason think about libertarians like me who work, in a sense, for Leviathan? I've been in this industry for over 15 years, and while I like my job, I am aware that it is funded by a bloated, taxpayer-funded defense budget that I, as a libertarian, would like to see slashed. Yes. So is this an ethical contradiction? Is it a hate the game, not the player scenario? Or should I consider leaving the industry on principle? Katherine, was this a person that you ran into?
I can't reveal my secrets, but
What do you think about the question?
I think it's a great question, and I think that it kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier in the podcast, which is that the federal government has tentacles everywhere. It has its fingers in everything, and so all of us stop laughing, Nick. So all of us are implicated in some kind of way. Now, maybe there are better and worse jobs to have from a moral point of view, from my moral point of view at least. But you could say, for example, the Reason Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit, which benefits from the tax break that you receive if you donate to us, reason.com/donate, that we're beneficiaries of a overcomplicated tax code, and maybe we should also walk away and do something more ethical. I'm not going to do that. It's almost impossible, actually, to live a life in the United States that doesn't touch the operations of the federal government in some kind of way. And so I am inclined to give a pass. That said, culturally, I am also from Washington, the Washington, D.C. area. Everyone I know is guilty on this front, more or less. And it's hard to look around and say every single one of these people is a monster. I don't think they are. Maybe the truly moral life, though, is kind of to go full Galt's Gulch. I think we should always hold the possibility of disappearing to an autonomous, hidden town in the mountains and just doing like basket weaving and architecture for funsies. It sounds good. Sounds increasingly appealing to me every day.
You can become part of the Galt right?
Nope. Not going to call it that.
The jury of Katherine has spoken. Matt Welch, what do you think about this question? Should this guy quit his job?
I ain't judgy. I don't like to tell people what to do, what to think. I'm glad that Katherine has the job of what does Reason think. I've never been super comfortable in that. Do what you like. If we had some kind of penalty associated on people's libertarianism for their implication with Leviathan, then we would be, to cite one example, we would be penalizing a lot of the early and most vociferous Ron Paul supporters. Right? How many times in our DC offices have we seen some guy cycle through and he's on, his 2 weeks or 4 or 6 weeks from serving abroad, and it's just like someone handed me some Ron Paul stuff and it lit me up, and now I want to learn more. So many people, really, really a lot of people, whenever they were looking at donations to the Ron Paul campaign, particularly in 2008, there's just a huge number of military. This is also true of Gary Johnson, if memory serves correct, when he ran for the Libertarian Party and won the nomination, not the presidency. It sounds like you want someone to tell you what to do, which is not surprising for a defense contractor. Know what I mean?
Oh, dang!
But I'm not gonna volunteer for that job. There are ways to go through life outside of Leviathan. If that's what you really want and feel like doing, do that too. But I'm not going to judge you. Do what you can.
can I just make a bid here for being extremely judgy and telling people what to do is not incompatible with deep libertarian principles. It's just that everyone else has to be able to tell you to fuck off.
Yeah.
Nick, do you have a message for Katherine?
No, well, one of the things, the reason I was laughing is the idea that there are tentacles everywhere. We need to figure out a way to somehow take hentai porn or hentai porn, the tentacle porn, and turn it into a critique of government, right? Because it seems
this is like that Harper's article about gooners.
Yeah,
it's
there's
for
just
government.
a lot of tentacles everywhere. I will reveal that I am the person
Please,
that Matt
no.
ran into in an
that's
elevator. I was in D.C. This was maybe a month ago or so when I was in pop tech. I scrubbed my background. I'm not doing a Kurt Eichenwald, Katherine. I make sure there is no tentacle porn visible.
All I'm saying is the proximity between the phrase tentacle porn and I can reveal was deeply alarming. And I think not just to me.
You know what? That's the way I roll, I suppose. In any case, I was in D.C. for the Pop Tech Conference, which I highly recommend people can look around. I think I chose that as my consumption one week. And Matt was in town for a big military-industrial complex conference. And we ran into each other in an elevator, and he said hello. He is part of a new era of military-industrial contractors who are trying to break down the big old stolid, glacial people who have, were the people that Eisenhower warned us about back in 1960. It's good to have a different type of, group and people in trying to give the government better ways of defending the homeland. He and I talked about this briefly. I worry about some of the new gen people. I don't really understand what his company was doing and how they promote stuff. But I do worry about the new generation of heavily Silicon Valley based or funded defense contractors that are like, you know what, we got to get into the Pentagon and move fast and break things, just like we did with social media or just like we did with, home delivery of pizza or something. I don't know. And like that worries me a bit because these people are self-interested and they're going to start selling the government on a bunch of shit that doesn't work that we don't need in order to line their own pockets. And that's always the thing. I think as long as you are a defense contractor who is helping the country defend itself and not surveil all of us, more power to you, and keep doing it until you realize that you don't want to do it anymore, and then become like Matt, a burnt out husk of a person who can't even fully enjoy this last and most recent and one of the greatest World Series of all time.
This is lies.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, I think the way I would answer this is, do you feel that your job, your company, your contract, whoever it is you work for, the project you're working on, is in a moral way, like deeply contributing to something that you find personally objectionable, that you cannot in good conscience participate in? If that's the case, then maybe you should be rethinking your life choices. But that's a question that I certainly can't answer for you. I don't even know exactly what it is that you're doing. But I would say that just knowing that you are a defense contractor, that you are working on defense, yes, the defense budget is way too big. All of us would like to slash it by many percentage points. At the same time, unless you are an anarchist, sorry, Katherine, I don't think libertarians do not believe that America should not have a military. I don't think libertarians believe that we should simply not spend any dollars at all on national defense. And especially in the world that we live in, national defense is, in fact, pretty important. And so if you are doing a part of that is vital, that is valuable, then maybe it's not just that you should feel a little bit anxious or guilty about it. Maybe that's actually a good thing. I think that if you believe that, unless you believe that government simply shouldn't exist, then this is a question of, is the project I'm working on immoral in some way? Is the thing that I am doing something that I find unconscionable? But it's not about just working for the government generally. If you're an anarchist, maybe don't. But it doesn't sound like you're an anarchist, and libertarians, not anarchists, unless you're Catherine.
Your answer now makes me regret my answer, Peter, because listening to you talk sounds like a bunch of statist cope, I have to say. So actually quit your job, live a good life, go plant your garden, get the hell out.
Do something to protect Venezuelan fishing boats rather than locate
than to target them. Yeah, I mean, obviously, listen, like the outward-facing guns are the last thing to go in the anarchist revolution, but still, maybe don't do what Peter said. I take back everything I said before.
Don't listen to me. That's my
Don't
other.
listen to
That actually is my other piece of advice.
That's my real guidance for you.
All right. Since the government is shut down, that means we have our pseudo king Trump, who is just he's the government now. He's just running around doing stuff. Let's check in on how the old executive power situation is going. There's a big tariff case that is going before the Supreme Court this week. Is this the most important case ever, which is what Trump claims? Matt Welch, what do you think? Most important? Is it going
to super important? Not in the way that Trump says, and that this would bring ruination on the nation if he doesn't get the vote that he wants. But if he does get the vote that he wants, especially, and even if it doesn't, this is basically, can the president declare an emergency and do anything he wants? Do anything he wants with an enumerated power given to Congress. It seems pretty obvious that facially, no, he shouldn't have that ability to do that. And so if he is given that in the Declaration of National Emergency Tariffs, then anything's a national emergency. That's terrible. That's like Gonzalez versus Reich territory. That's Kelo versus New London. Actually worse, because Kelo sparked a backlash against eminent domain in 40 out of 50 states legally. So this is a pretty big deal. I hope that Trump's interests are going to lose at the Supreme Court, because you shouldn't be able to say, national emergency, we have to put tariffs on Canadian lumber, because that's fucking nonsense. And a president shouldn't have that power. And he already has way too much power, especially in the name of national security, of things that are actually kind of related to national security a little bit. So let's not try to pretend that national security or emergencies exist where they do not, because then we're just going to live in a monarchy. And I'm not here for that.
Yeah, sometimes the emergency is some guy from Canada ran an ad featuring Reagan talking about tariffs, and I got mad.
Sounds like an emergency to me.
If the Blue Jays had won the World Series, I think, that would have been another 10 points up on Canadian tariffs.
I went on Monday to speak to a group of business school students at Wharton, Trump's alma mater. They were part of the Adam Smith Society there, which is a kind of it's the Federal Society, but for business school, though I'm sure they wouldn't want to be described that way. A really good group. Every time I go speak to students in this group, I'm very impressed by their excellent questions and general, actual giving a shit. But a question that I frequently get is, if you were king for a day, what one policy would you change? And once I breathe through the conceptual horrors of being king for a day,
you'd like it.
You'd
like it.
I would like it, but it's bad that I would like it. Kings are bad. So the answer that I always end up with is end the war on drugs, because at least part of this tariff thing, the way that we got reverse double backwarded into it, you will recall, is because the fentanyl is coming from the places. And so we need to do the tariffs to stop it. I just think you cannot say enough the way that the war on drugs has snuck into every single aspect of public policy making and made it stupider and centralized it more in the executive and necessitated having to go to the Supreme Court and clarify that the president can't take an enumerated power of Congress and just run with it. It's bonkers. If the court rules in Trump's favor on this, I don't know, man. I just don't know.
Nick, when John Roberts was being up for Supreme Court justice, right? The thing that he is, right? But he was talking to Congress.
What's
right?
that guy's job?
The famous quote that he gave was, I see the job of being a Supreme Court justice as calling balls and strikes. And part of that was a kind of neutrality, but even more than that, I think it's become clear over the years that John Roberts finds it quite uncomfortable to get the court involved in politics. And he wants to have a court, his ideal is to have a court that is kind of apart from politics and separated from it. And what people are saying here, and what I think is kind of correct, is in this case with the tariffs, there's no way for that to happen. Trump himself has basically said, I'm going to take this as a personal insult. You'll be robbing me of like a very useful, an absolutely necessary power. The Trump statement from a day or so ago is, if a president was not able to quickly and nimbly use the power of tariffs, we would be defenseless, leading perhaps even to the ruination of our nation. And he says some other stuff. If we win, we will be the richest, most secure country anywhere in the world by far. And if we lose, our country could be reduced to almost third world status. Pray to God that doesn't happen. But like Trump is saying, this is apocalyptic, and I will be personally really mad if you say that I don't have this power here. So how does the court navigate this minefield?
They tell Trump to go fuck himself, and they also order him to do another one of those old age cognitive tests, because everything that he said in justifying the need for tariffs as like a pressing, emergency is factually wrong. It's empirically laughable. So John Roberts can hope, to be apart from politics, but the Supreme Court never will be. And they're going to have to look not simply at whether or not the law allows the president to declare an emergency and then that's the end of it, but rather like lower courts have already ruled, saying like, yeah, this is not an emergency. Just like Trump has been struck down in other courts for saying like there is mayhem in cities when it's plainly not mayhem. So it's going to be a tough week for John Roberts. And I hope this time, unlike in the Obamacare case, that he actually develops a spine or borrows one from somebody so that he rules in a way that is actually in accordance with the Constitution and with basic principles of limited government and separation of powers. That would be a great thing. As a final codicil to all of that, if that's even the right way to use that word, Trump is already working to reduce his tariffs, not because our balance of trade has gotten better or anything like that, but because these things have, he jacked up prices faster than anybody in American history, and it has not been good. It has not been completely ruinous of the country, but it is bad, and he's doing everything he can everywhere to backpedal as quickly and as softly as possible, because tariffs, the way he's done them and the broad-based way he's done them, is stupid. And it's ineffective in terms of like either raising money for the government or making lives and jobs easier in the United States.
Katherine, this looks like an open and shut case to me. I mean, when I look at the arguments that are being made here, you have just sort of a kind of a logic chain where it starts with, yes, the president does have the power under this law that he has cited that says basically if there is an emergency, you can regulate certain aspects of the economy. But regulation doesn't mean taxation. And part of the things that one of the things that the court has done over the past couple of years is they have instituted this thing called the major questions doctrine, where they basically say you're not going to hide a major executive power in vague or unclear language or in some sort of footnote to a law. And if you're saying that you can regulate the economy, that's not the same as taxing the economy. Okay, then you go to, even if you think that might mean taxation, then you have this other problem, which is the separation of powers. Congress cannot delegate its core constitutional powers to the executive branch. And only Congress has the power of taxation. And so at every point here, it sort of seems like this fails to me. It seems like this is not a close call at all. And yet I'm seeing legal scholars saying, well, it's sort of unclear, it's sort of vague. We don't know exactly how the courts are going to rule. What do you think just on the merits, the legal merits of this case here? Not should Trump have this power, but like by the law, does he?
I don't think he does, but I think the reason that everyone is being kind of waffly on the edges is because the Supreme Court recognizes that this is potentially the moment that they lose their legitimacy. I mean, this is like the real concern for the court.
I mean, in whose eyes?
Is that they say, hey, this is just illegal. Sorry, bro, you cannot do this. And Trump says, I'm gonna anyway. And then what happens? And maybe everything goes crumbling down into a broken sandcastle. Like, I don't think that's what's going to happen. And I'm sorry for the Matt Welch metaphor, but I think it is not it would not be crazy for the members of the Supreme Court to be worried about the "you and what army" problem. It would be not crazy for the members of the Supreme Court to be trying really hard to think about a way to present this decision that doesn't trigger. I mean, people are using the phrase constitutional crisis like far too often, but this really could trigger a constitutional crisis. So I think it's the way in which this case might go south is not about the underlying question of the law, from my perspective, not being a constitutional scholar, but rather the practicalities.
I mean, my sense is that the Trump administration has signaled that they're probably, and this is definitely a we hope, not going to simply ignore the Supreme Court, but instead find new laws that they
and
can
it's not
cite,
just this
new
one.
procedural workarounds for tariffs and other things, and that will just end up back in court again, and we'll probably still have a comparable tariff regime.
Some of this is also, how are they going to rule on this one? But how are they going to rule on the 7 more similarly fraught, difficult questions about the limits of executive authority that are coming right down after this?
All right. Speaking of things collapsing and going south, let's go to our final segment here. See if we can keep it going for another couple of minutes. What have you been watching, consuming, reading, etc. in the cultural realm? Matt Welch, been watching any sports recently?
I watched Game 7 of the World Series, and it was awesome. Basically it. That's the memo. I will link in the show notes to Joe Posnanski's, Nick, you know how to pronounce his name, piece that he wrote. He's a terrific baseball writer and sports writer, I think from the great state of Ohio, where Nick used to live. He wrote a great piece about this. Made it great. It was Game 7, so best of 7 in World Series. Went to extra innings, so at any given time, the next pitch, the next swing, in fact, the announcers said it right before the last play of the game, this swing will either win the game could either win the game for the Toronto Blue Jays or the Los Angeles Dodgers. And it indeed was won by the Dodgers. Alejandro Kirk grounded into a double play. It was just a terrific World Series, all in all, incredible characters, heroism, heartbreak. I especially appreciated that no matter how bad the Fox broadcasting was, it didn't matter. The one thing that they did, and hopefully will never do again, is they're interviewing the managers in the middle of the game, not even like in between. Like there's like stuff going on. Like, hey, manager.
Wonderful. You don't like that, Matt?
I think that is absolute garbage, and hopefully this will be the last time that's ever done. It's just really cringe-inducing, and the broadcast pair especially.
You're telling me if you had the chance to hear the Kurt Bavakwa tape, like live during a broadcast, you would not have been in favor of that, Matt
So
Welch?
let it happen.
Bavakwa?
The baseball fans will get it. It's a famous managerial rant when the manager goes out to relieve a pitcher.
Anyways, it's glorious.
That would be so
beseech
great.
people, the non-fans, so 2 out of the 4 of us, to at least read the piece and try to understand any of the words and get a sense of what made this so fun. The human drama of athletic competition still can't be beat. Live. It's terrific. And I learned from Harry Enton, the CNN numbers cruncher, over the weekend that you can even get, and if you're really crazy about sports, which I'm not, like rabbit ears on your television, and it'll be like 7 seconds ahead of your friends who have it, like who have unplugged their box. And that
you did watch it on over the air, Matt? It's the only way to watch live sports.
That's what I understand. I mean, I watch it on cable or Verizon.
The other thing that was amazing about it, and Matt, I don't know if you would agree, but that the Dodgers are such, they are one of America's great baseball teams. And I really don't like the Dodgers, but it's also amazing. They were like a mini UN if the UN was really good at something.
Yeah.
And the Blue Jays too. I mean, it's, Toronto Blue Jays, a Canadian team playing America's pastime and doing really well. And it is just like, it's unbelievable. It is, there's your melting pot right there, in the World Series.
Dueling national anthems.
So good.
A lot of really impressive necklace and hair games going on.
Did one of these games get higher ratings than the Super Bowl? Did I read that?
No, that's never going to happen. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was the best ratings in a long time. One of the games went 18 innings, which is preposterously long.
Twice as double the. I was lucky to be on the West Coast or in the Pacific time zone when that happened, so I could actually stay up for it too.
Yeah, this podcast might be going 18 innings here.
It feels like it. If unlike me, you enjoyed any of what just happened there, Reason has a sports newsletter. It's called Free Agent. It's by Jason Russell. Before this podcast, because I knew this would happen, I asked him what I should say in case I was forced to say words about baseball. And he said to point out that two of the heroes of the game were Cuban and Venezuelan, and that it's a triumph of, globalization or something.
Now we can send it back. We don't need them anymore.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway,
all right.
Free Agent. You should subscribe to it if you like sports ball and also freedom.
Catherine, since Matt talked about broadcasters asking questions of managers in the middle of their workday, you want to go next?
Sure. So I read 3 Days, 9 Months, 27 Years, which is a new short story from John Scalzi. Kindle is doing a series of short stories from science fiction greats called The Time Traveler's Passport. I always love short story collections. I am a big fan of the genre, and I feel like it's really suffered in more recent days because you don't really, you don't go buy like a book full of short stories by random people as much anymore. You do, but most people don't. So this is an interesting solution. I got this in one of those like recommended Kindle single type things. I like John Scalzi, but sometimes I find him to be overly wordy. And so a short story really hit the sweet spot. This is a great one for people who love a little time heist, a little I am the keeper of the timeline plot, a little what does actually it mean to accept that the past is the past and we can't change it, maybe. And it kind of like plays with the idea of closure being possible. The theory is you can travel back in time. It's kind of a luxury good. And then you can stay for what you perceive to be 3 days, 9 months, 27 years, or forever. And then they pull you back out. And it's a good concept, and it was a good read. And I am planning to read the rest in the Time Traveler's Passport series of Kindle singles.
That sounds delightful. And I actually think like in our digital world where page counts matter less, short stories and novellas and novelettes even, nobody even knows what a novelette is. It's like
sometimes called novellas,
words, right? But that sort of shorter format fiction actually should thrive. Maybe even in a world of shorter attention spans, this sort of thing might work. I have actually been stocking my shelves with print copies of the old Gardner Dozois year's best science fiction collections. It's really hard to find number one for a price that's not totally crazy, but I've got most of them so far. It's kind of fun. So I'll go next. I saw the movie Begonia. This is the new movie from Yorgos Lanthimos, and it is nihilistic and bleak and funny as hell, and it just absolutely gets everything that is wrong with our moment in a kind of compact, dramatic metaphor, because basically it's about a guy who seems pretty crazy. He has gone down a whole bunch of internet rabbit holes and believes that the world is controlled by aliens, and he's got it figured out. This guy's played by Jesse Plemons, and he's a little off. He's pretty cracked. And so he and his even more off cousin decide to kidnap the CEO of a big corporation that's sort of like drugs, but maybe also Amazon and a whole bunch of other stuff. They shave her head. It's played by Emma Stone. And she starts talking to them. And at first she's like, this is not going to work. I have the power here. The state governments, they're going to come for you, like the police. That's all right. Like she starts with just sort of like, it's the power negotiations, exactly the sort of thing that she is used to. That doesn't work at all. They don't come for her. He doesn't listen. So then she sort of moves on to diagnosing him as somebody who's like a conspiracy theorist, who's just like been sucked into these internet rabbit holes. You know, it's not his fault, right? It's just the culture of the internet. And he's just like, I've read those think pieces too, and they're dumb, and you're condescending to me. And he's kind of right, even though he's crazy and he kidnapped her and he thinks she's an alien and he shaved her head. And this just goes on and on and on like this. And what you see is the story of an elite who lives in a rarefied, strange world. When we first see her, she's like talking about diversity initiatives and just like absolute corporate gobbledygook that's totally inhuman. And this other guy who has been sort of put through the world that she created. And they are aliens to each other, and they cannot talk to each other. And it is just this absolutely bleak, fascinating, and very, very funny film with a pretty fantastic ending about about an America, sort of a modern world in which there are two classes of people whose lives are deeply intertwined. And one of the twists, it turns out, sort of small twist, it turns out he works in a fulfillment center run by her company, and also his family has been affected by failed drugs that her company tested on his mother, right? And so their lives are so deeply intertwined, and it kind of like, this movie doesn't go easy on this crazy guy who commits the kidnapping. It doesn't say, well, this is somebody who we should really just have deep sympathy for because you can totally... No, it presents this person as like violent and crazy, but also, wouldn't you be kind of cracked if you grew up like this? Wouldn't you be pretty messed up too? And so it is a both-sidesing movie in which both sides are kind of right about the worst aspects of the other side. Just absolutely fantastic, crazy, weird, nihilistic little movie from the guy who made The Favorite, The Poor Things, The Lobster. If you like his movies, I think this is definitely his best. It is Begonia, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. Nick, what did you see?
So just a quick poll, Matt and Catherine, was that 3 days, 9 months, or 27 years, or forever?
My World Series thing, I think, was forever.
So I watched In Waves and War, which comes out tonight, November 3rd, right? It is November 3rd on Netflix. It is a documentary by John Schenck and Bonnie Cohen featuring Marcus Capone, who is a Navy SEAL who is famous for trying to solve his PTSD and brain problems from working in Afghanistan as a soldier with Ibogaine and 5-MeO-DMT, which are two super powerful psychedelics. He and his wife, Amber, Marcus Capone and Amber, his wife, founded a group called Vets, which takes American veterans to Mexico to get this kind of treatment because it is not legal in the United States. In Waves and Wars follows 3 SEALs, including Marcus Capone, as they explain what they came back from Afghanistan and Iraq with in terms of mental issues and how they started to address them doing Ibogaine. It is a very powerful movie. It's an important movie, and it's one more in this list of films that shows how psychedelics are immensely powerful and hopeful tools used in the right hands, and that they also have a broad application beyond simply people, or veterans and people of deep traumatic incidents. It opens on Netflix. It's also, I talked with Schenck and Capone for this Wednesday's Reason interview with Nick Gillespie. That podcast, you can subscribe to it at Reason and get it delivered immediately, but it'll be more conversation. But in the meantime, I think anybody interested in mental health, in foreign policy, to be quite honest, as well as what comes next in therapeutics and ways of making ourselves more fully actualized, would enjoy In Waves and War on Netflix.
All right, folks, that is our show. We have a special bonus episode coming up next month. It is our Webathon episode, and we're going to answer your questions. So if you have a question for us, send it to podcasts@reason.com. That's podcasts@reason.com. And put the word Webathon in the subject line. Webathon question. You can ask us absolutely anything you want to ask us. You can ask Matt Welch about baseball. You can ask Nick about New Jersey. You can ask Katherine Mangu-Ward about science fiction, purple hair. Anything you want. Just me, cocktail recipes, I don't know. Maybe even some public policy and government stuff too. Some of the things we talk about on this show. Anything you want, you can ask us. Just put the word Webathon in the subject line so that we actually know it's a Webathon question. All right. If you like this podcast, you can support us right now by going to reason.com/donate. That's reason.com/donate. Thank you all so much for listening. The Reason Roundtable will return.